Welcome, everyone. I am delighted that you're here, and my name is Randy Howell with My Trader State of Mind. And the first thing is let's just check to make sure that everybody can hear me. If some people would just type in Y into the box that they can hear me so we can get that straight and know that I'm just not talking out into the ethers. Okay, we're good to go. Okay, the only real thing I have in terms of little housekeeping is that traditionally I hold my questions till the end, so hold them, or you can even write them into the box, and Dolores will retain those questions, and we'll get to them at the end of the show. Okay, that's the only other thing. Now, you know, let's frame this situation because it's really an amazing situation. Traders and trading. Everybody comes to trading with hope and a willingness to work to make success happen. Okay? Plan A rarely works. And this webinar is for those of you looking for Plan B. That's what we're here for, okay? From there, let's take a look at this Plan B. What is it that we haven't been seeing about our emotions and mind when we're exposing ourselves to risk and capital that keeps just blowing up our Plan A? We're going to be looking at that this evening, and we're going to find some solutions to it. So let's look forward on this thing. If IQ and knowledge created success in trading, there would be many successful traders, but they're not. Emotional intelligence and emotional discipline is what's needed for success in trading. And that, the emotional intelligence and emotional discipline, is incredibly short supply. What we want to do is we want to look at the problem of success in trading, and we want to be able to say, let's fix that problem. Okay? That's where we're starting. But before I go, go back, Doris. Thank you. This is my fault. What I didn't say is that ultimately this is really about the way your thinking brain, or in this image, what's called the rational brain, relates to the emotional brain, or what in this image is saying, the limbic brain. The limbic brain is a very old brain structure. It's been intact for about 6.5 million years. The rational brain, as we understand it, probably has only been around for about 150,000 years. Do you see the problem? Until we come to a moment of where that emotional brain and that neocortex are working together as a unit, all that knowledge, all that IQ horsepower you have is wasted, because ultimately you haven't got management of emotions, the emotions that create mind that you trade with. This is what we want to look at, and we have to really grasp that Plan A is not working. My smarts, my winning attitude, all that stuff, all that knowledge, all those courses I've taken, all that stuff you have on your shelves, still, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, and Humpty Dumpty's broken. We need to start looking and going, whether or not it's just trying to get to consistent profitability, or get to where you're not blowing up accounts and bleeding, or whether or not you're trying to move from one level to another level. It's all coming down to a relationship between the rational brain and the limbic system. That's what we want to look at. Now we can go forward. Your brain and mine envision success in a very primitive and magical way. It really wants Hollywood endings to be true. It really wants to go off into the sunset after a big struggle. It wants that, and that's what it's built to do. Unfortunately, like Hollywood myths, is they buy into a story that humans buy into. The problem is that the conditions of success in trading are very different than the environment that your brain has been evolved for. Okay? And so we're going, wow, that's what happens is that you have this idea, you're going to go off in the sunset, yeah, you're going to struggle, you're going to have, you're going to really have to work hard, you've got that Puritan work ethic going, and you're smart, you're going to have to learn a lot, and you do all that stuff, you have that, and then you know that, I can trade in sim when the money's not real, and I'm a millionaire. But boy, the moment that I start putting real risk on, or once I get out of my comfort zone of risk, boy, everything falls apart. And then the guy on the right, you start looking at this stuff and you go, what was going on? What just happened to my mind? Who just possessed my mind? Well, it goes back to this rational brain and limbic system. Okay? In theory, success has always been in your grasp. In practice, though, deeper success stays elusive until we figure out what's going on. Unfortunately, for your thinking brain, okay, it has got you to the point where you believe that you're rational, and you think you can be rational in the face of uncertainty. But in truth, what you discover is that the moment that you start hitting uncertainty, when you hit those challenges of uncertainty, everything goes bananas. And you start really going, wait, why can't I be rational in the face of uncertainty? Well, it's never been that way. We've been taught that it should be that way, but I'm asking you to quit shitting on yourself. I'm asking you to start saying, I need to build the emotions that build mine, okay? Because what I know is that under stress, hijacks reason. And it's a slam dunk. It's kind of like in this graphic here, what you're looking at is you're looking at this rhinoceros, and you're looking at this rational thinking, and the guy thinks, oh, I'm going to be rational. I'm just going to walk in here and be rational. And, the rhinoceros is having none of this, okay? Is the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance. It's the illusion of knowledge. And that's by Mr. Hawkins, who just recently passed. The key, though, is that you do not have knowledge of self. And that puts you at an enormous disadvantage when you start risking capital in the markets. If you don't know yourself, you don't understand emotion, because you are emotions. Emotions are you, I should say. And without understanding it, your inner rhinoceros is going to show up at all the wrong times. And whether or not it's trying to pull the trigger and just being absolutely seized with fear, or whether or not it's just taking a loss and just wanting to get it back and jumping in there and just overtrading like crazy, or just sitting there and overtrading for the very moment, or whether or not you have FOMO, fear of missing out, where you've got some profit there, and what happens is you get scared the market's going to take it away, and you take it, and then it goes to the other step. That's your personal rhinoceros taking away your rational mind. Happens all the time. And what most people discover is it doesn't really get better as you get more experience. You tend to traumatize yourself, and it becomes reactive. Why is this? Well, the truth is, your brain adapted you for short-term success in a very dangerous world. And you see this evolutionary track from 6.5 million years ago to where now we have this guy sitting in front of a computer. And now you're asking that brain, okay, to think in probabilities rather than in the certainty type thinking, particularly when you have capital at risk, or what would be known as biological threat. You are literally naively asking the brain to undo 6.5 million years worth of successful adaptation so that you can trade. Now, do you think that sounds fair? This is how traders become extinct. And believe me, there is an enormous extinction line that goes along with traders. I mean, they blow it out within 3 years and are gone because they don't understand what in the world they're getting into before it's too late. So, well, like Spock says, why can't emotions be left out of the trading performance? It's all logic. If I just stay in logic and I keep the emotions out of it, then I would be right. Wrong. Emotions and thinking work as a unit. Okay? And you can suppress emotions, okay? However, they stay submerged and they ambush you at all the wrong times. You will have felt that. Emotional management mostly means suppressing emotions or denying emotions. Now, what I want to do is I would like some feedback here, okay? I want you to look at your track record, okay, and your trading account and tell me if this works. If suppressing or denying emotions and trying to push emotions away, I want you to tell me if you use the barometer as your trading account, has that method worked? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. It's never worked. Never. And then you're going, well, what's wrong with this picture? Could it be that I'm not nearly as rational as I think I am? Do you remember this incredibly naive thing a few years ago when economists were believing that people actually in a market were rational and they couldn't understand why things kept flying off the handle, but they kept assuming at the baseline that humans were rational. And now we have an entire field that a guy got a Nobel Prize for, I might add, about emotional finance, where what they've discovered is people are highly irrational when it comes to money, when it comes to economics. And so we're beginning to see we've been feeding ourselves a lie, and it's the people who wake up from drinking the Kool-Aid that are going to be surviving and adapting and living on. It's the people who want to continue holding that, oh, I'm rational, I'm just going to be rational, that are deceiving themselves. This is where emotional state management is so important. We want to, and if you want to blame somebody, okay, let's blame Descartes and Newton. Descartes' that guy that's very famous for saying, I think, therefore I am, and that Newton's the guy who had the apple hit him on the head and apparently maybe got a brain injury out of it. And out of that, they came to this idea of deterministic thinking, okay? And they thought that reason could be separated from emotion. And what I have is I have Descartes and Newton is equal to I think, therefore I am dangerous. And as a trader, it's true, okay? So we've got somebody to blame, okay? These can be your scapegoats, but your own assumptions also have to be brought out and they have to be looked at. And you have to start looking at how my brain works, okay? The emotional brain slam dunks thinking brain every time you risk capital. It doesn't stop, okay, until you commit to mastering your emotions. That's the big piece that people don't get. And it goes back to the thing that I said that opened this up, is that they would be a heck of a lot more successful traders if this was about IQ and knowledge. But when you discover how few successful traders they are, you discover it's not about that at all. For those who didn't win the genetic lottery for trading, it's about emotional intelligence and about designing the emotions that engage uncertainty. So we've gotten here. And so now let's take a look at this and say, well, I still can't, what is this thing? Why can't I alter this thing? The truth is you don't have emotions. You can't, listen to people say, I'm having this emotional hijacking. I'm having this, I'm having that. Like I have these emotions, I own these emotions. No, you don't. They have you, they own you. Is if you begin to understand how emotions work, emotions, if you look at them as biological action potentials whose job it is to coordinate action between you and the environment for successful living. And successful living is staying alive and breeding the population. Okay? That's what emotions do. And the emotional brain makes the decision, and the thinking brain creates an explanation, an alibi, actually, that supports that decision, no matter how skewed it is. Okay? This is the link that was it was taken apart by Descartes and Newton. And the whole world, the whole Western world, and the Western world just inoculated in the rest of the world, and everybody started thinking this way, and it was kind of crazy. But the fallacy of rational thought revealed that you are not a rational being. You are a rationalizing being. Okay? Let me give you an example if you don't think this happens every day in your trading. Who in here, take an example. Let's just say that you have this problem. If you could only get past this problem, you would be in the money. Good money, not just a little bit of money, but the real trading money. Is you have FOMO, fear of missing out. And after all that trade management you've gone through, the up and down, it going sideways, it going against you, and it just going up and down, up and down, up and down, it finally gets into the black. And suddenly what you do is it makes a lot of sense at that moment, while you're under the grip of the fear of missing out of profits, that you say, I'm going to take that profit out right now before it's taken away from me. And you take it. And in that moment, you have thought through that problem and have made a decision based on the emotion, fear of missing out. Yet when you get the money and you go, oh my God, what have I just done? That trade simply went to the target just like it does almost all the time. And what I did is I cheated myself. Why did I do that? The truth is, you were never rational. You were rationalizing your brain, your left brain, that this IQ center where all this reason is supposed to be and all this logic is supposed to be, where Newton and Descartes are camped out telling you that this is all logic and rational, you don't have emotions. Basically, the emotion didn't really care. It just took over thinking anyway. You made a decision that seemed logical, rational at the moment, but when you got taken out of that context and you cooled down, you realized that, my God, what have I just done? I got possessed all over again. Yeah, you've got that mouse running around in that little thing in there, okay? So we're beginning to see this thing, and we're going, wow, we have a brain for just this. There's something really wrong with this brain that I'm trying to force into trading. Yep. Nobody teaches emotional mastery as part of trading education. They talk about it, saying, it'd be really good to do some, get really good with emotion. And nobody's knocking on my door. I have a few trader trainers over time who've come to me, and as a matter of fact, my group course came out of trader trainers coming to me and saying, Randy, we need a course that our FX traders can afford. Can you design one for us? And at the same time, you discover that, wow, why aren't they teaching us this first when once you go up the knowledge thing, because what they're saying is leave emotions at the door, and all that kind of good stuff, blah, 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 blah. And at the same time, you're discovering is that you can't. You are emotions. And if you stay ignorant of how to use emotions, then they keep busting you. And your trading account's going to tell you. So we recognize we will have people who say, Randy, I want to incorporate this into my stuff, and I recognize it's the angle that you do it from. There is just so much here that I can't see any other place, and we want to do it. But that only has happened 2 or 3 times in 10 years. Okay? So you begin to see that there's a problem in the way that trading is taught and introduced. So what we realize is this. The problem of emotion is real, and the problem's not going to go away like your capital will. Okay? Remember, in trading, there's about a 5% success rate where people are actually making money. However, within that 5%, only about 1% are actually making good money. So the 5% is a little deceptive. That's a profitability, but marginal profitability. And you get down to it, and ultimately, it's ignoring emotion's impact on trading performance. It's going to put you in harm's way every time. You start wanting to believe, but the thing is the only friend that you really have is your trading account. It's going to tell you, if you understand, and I framed the trading account literally as the litmus test that tells you the effectiveness of the beliefs that you're projecting onto the markets about your ability to manage uncertainty. We want to believe one thing, but when it comes down to performance beliefs, we don't want to see it. Okay? And we realize that, we have to wake up from this ignorance. We really do, or it's going to be a problem. And here's your dilemma, friends. That's not going to go away. The mind that you brought to trading, rooted in this rationalism and blind to emotion, is not the mind that will bring success in trading. Write that down, print it, and put it in your head. It's the closest sound to truth you're going to get. This is really about waking up and realizing that you're going to have to redesign the brain mind that you bring to trading. Otherwise, you're going to be like little Goldilocks here, little Red Riding Hood here, falling for the lies and deception of the wolf every time. A little bit of money, a little bit of candy, you look at it and it just seems so easy. It sounds so good. I just follow these rules. That's all I have to do. Then probability is on my side, yada, yada, yada. Then you add real money, real risk to it, and everything changes. Okay? That's the piece that really, and what you have to get, and the thing that is so difficult, is that there is no control over outcome. There is a randomness to uncertainty that just freaks the emotional brain out. And no matter how logically, how right you are, you can still be wrong. Happens all the time. It's probability. And your job, if you want to become a successful trader, is to redesign what the brain and mind have been designed for, certainty thinking, controlling outcome, and redesign it. 6.5 million years of design just thrown right out to match up to engaging uncertainty from a disciplined, calm state of mind. No easy trick, my friends. And here we go. When you take a look at this, you begin to realize that, wow, how can neurobiology and quantum mechanics unblind you, your eyes? The truth is, it's the observer of the markets, a market phenomenon, that counts. You bring an observer. That's not an eye that you bring to the markets. You actually bring an observer that is a potential organization of a self based on beliefs about your ability to manage uncertainty. You project them, and depending on how good of an observer you are of the markets, you realize that you don't see the total picture of the elephant. You see only one part. And this really comes back down to what the brain does. The brain, and a neuroscientist would tell you that you have never experienced reality whatsoever, with those two eyes that you're looking out in the world and seeing things. Instead, what you've done is your brain has organized all the data from central modalities coming into the brain, has organized it into a virtual representation, a perceptual map that then you project and organize the phenomena of the markets around. You never see the markets. You see an interpretation of the markets. And what I'm asking you to do is not trust what you're looking at, trust what the trading account's telling you about what you're really believing that you're projecting. Because understand, you never see the markets. You never have the true markets. You're an observer observing the markets. I work with a guy who sees the markets in terms of blood. He's after blood. He's a very good trader, and what he recognizes, he doesn't see charts. He sees where blood accumulates. And that's the way he understands the markets, and he extracts capital out of the markets every day from people who are trying to say, no, those are numbers. And they're definitive. What Christopher says is, no, that's blood. And he sees it very effectively, but the truth is, I doubt seriously if it's really blood. But boy, he knows how to extract capital out of the markets. Okay. Now, we need to learn to manage the emotions that give the mind that really the content that it has, okay? This is the psychological edge you need to develop to engage your method and your trading systems. Because understand this, is the mind comes forward out of the brain, and the brain's all about emotions, okay? So you begin to see, like Einstein's saying here, what the intuitive read emotional mind is a sacred gift, and the rational mind is a faithful servant. And understand, this is Albert Einstein speaking. We have created a society that honors the servant, the thinking mind, and has forgotten the gift, the intuitive, the emotional brain. Friend, if a genius can figure this out, we can read him and find out too. So we want to reintegrate the emotional right brain and the logical left brain, okay? So that we can work together using both of them. That's the big deal. Why? Because friends, we're writing our scripts all the time. There's not fate out there. There's not destiny out there that is calling you. No, what happens is based on the observer you are writing your script, you're writing your narrative and creating your future from the possibilities that your narrative allows you to see. Most people in trading live in a narrative that does not include success in trading because they're not willing to alter the winning narrative they have that got them there. And there's nothing wrong with that winning narrative. I know plenty of guys who've made tons of money in business and corporate, and they have that alpha thing where they're winners, they make things happen, and they come over to trading, and what they discover is that it's a dangerous mind to bring to trading. They have to write a new script. Instead of making things happen, they have to become watchfully waitful to see what the markets will give them. They have to develop patience rather than aggression. It's a big deal, okay? So you're creating the world that you experience. Very few people have developed the mind for this, okay? And I want to give you an example of a guy who has. George Soros, and I'm not asking whether or not you like or dislike him. This isn't about that. But what he does is he observes the market in terms of bubbles. And he said it's just like in nature. And he gave the example of the African vole in Alaska that has these population dynamics where they have these deep bubbles where their population increases dramatically, quickly. And what happens is everybody starts feasting on the voles, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, within 2 or 3 days, the bubble of population collapses, and everybody's on a starvation diet. He said the markets are the same way as nature if you know how to observe them. He's created the observer that observes for bubbles. What he also recognizes, and I'm saying this is him talking, is that he is both an observer of the markets, but he's also a participant in the markets. And by being a participant and observer, he's never a pure observer, and he also is participating, so he doesn't know for certain what's going to happen. But he operates between that participant and that observer, and he's made billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars. This is the narrative that he built. This is the narrative about writing your own script. This is the narrative that we want to be able to talk about and start saying, how do we develop this? How do we develop this observer the other way? We're having a little technical issues here. There we go. What I want to do is examine the difference between trading with a bias to control outcome, to predict outcome, to be right, and not to lose, versus managing the performance of execution. I worked with 2 traders in a small hedge fund a couple years ago, and one of them was one of the star performers where this is why people really were investing in the fund. And the other guy was profitable, but he wasn't on the same level. Yet they were best friends. They sat side by side. They used the same system. They had the same feeds. They used the same criteria. The difference is one had come from a CPA background and had been taught not to lose. Okay? The other guy came from a background of where, from an early age, he was taught, not necessarily for good reasons, but he was taught how to risk and be okay with whatever outcome happened. He had a number of things that he tried, didn't work. He was picked back up and said, do it again. It's okay. And ultimately, he came to a moment of where he realized that this is not about controlling outcome. This is about controlling the mind that I bring to my performance. Okay? Later, the other guy ended up working with me and became a much improved trader. But the thing is, I want you to see that, because this really is about your core beliefs, not the one you talk about, not the one when you're telling a fishing story that you talk about, but this is really about the core beliefs about managing uncertainty that are revealed in your performances in the heat of the moment. The truth is there is a randomness to uncertainty that just absolutely just freaks the emotional brain out. It wants control. It wants survival in the short term. Okay? Yet, trading demands a probability-based mind that is okay with randomness. Your job is to manage the randomness of uncertainty, friends, as a trader. And your biology is going to fight you every step of the way. Okay? This is the default programming you come to trading with. There's nothing wrong with you. Well, some of you maybe, okay? But mostly this is a massive biological obstacle that has been embedded in you because of successful evolution and adaptation. And that until you learn to get comfortable with the randomness of uncertainty and build a mind that can work with that, you're going to have a very difficult time being a successful trader. It's nothing personal, but it's very different. And when you're in business, just this whole thing of wanting to be a winner, all that, you don't necessarily see that you don't control future outcome in the long term, because you've seen a lot of successful entrepreneurs, business owners, myself included, that were very successful in a business, and they decided they were just going to do it in another business and fell flat on their feet. I was very lucky to have been in the business I was in. I was good at it. My mind was built for that. I went into another business where my mind just absolutely was not suited to it at all, and I fell miserably. And then I said, oh, well, what happened here? And I discovered that I need the type of environment that is really works in ideas, works in like internal change rather than changing external process, controlling and managing, working with randomness. So now we're going, whoa, okay, now randomness. And what I want you to see is you go to all these advertisements you see, all these trade shows, and what they're doing is they're trying to tell you, yeah, with our system, boy, look how much you can predict the outcome. Look how much you can predict the outcome. See what it does. That's in a real world of a rational, logical mind that doesn't exist. Yet you get the system, you put it in place, and then the real emotions of capital at risk show up. And all of a sudden, the randomness of uncertainty shows up again. And you're going, oh, wow. If you're smart, if you're wise, you go, oh, wow, these are about my beliefs, about my ability to be comfortable and engage uncertainty. Yes. And friends, that's where the magic is. So we have to get at the beliefs that are revealed by your trading account, and we have to change them on a performance level. And the thing about trading that's so different than other endeavors, it might take you years to find out that you really have made a stupid decision and just got lucky in business. Like my dad smoked Camel unfiltered cigarettes for like 52 years, and people would look at him and say, those are not very healthy for you. You really ought to stop. And my dad would look at him and say, well, it's not killing me. I'm not dead at this moment. And he never saw the probability of death looming. And the more he smoked, the probability got more like a black swan until one day it showed up and the doctor said, well, Howard, you're a walking dead man. And all of a sudden he got all bent out of shape and upset and he quit smoking, blah, 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 blah. It was way too late. He woke up late. Trading is a situation where the time between you discovering the outcome to your actions is so short that it is almost impossible to be in denial. As long as you have capital, you can. And if you want to lose a lot of money, you can stay in denial. But most people I know do not want to lose a lot of capital. And so it's hard for them to stay in denial. The truth is, I'm asking you to look at what are your performance beliefs. That's what needs to be changed. And how do you do it? The first stop is literally to say, what in the heck is your mind? Okay? Let's start in the beginning. Let's start at brain. This ought to be enough of a brain teaser for you. The brain is actually a community of rival emotional programs that organize your biology into a self to survive in the environment. And by the way, and along comes your thinking brain. Okay? That's what your brain is. It's an adaptive organism that has lots of spheres of influence, lots of, like in this image, you're seeing lots and lots of different compartments. In the real brain, there's lots of competitive pressures within that brain for different outcomes, for different things. Then, in neurobiology, what you learn is this, is that your mind emerges from brain. Okay? And then your mind then consists of those programs given voice in your awareness or in your mind, and what you get is it's duking it out for control of self. If you've ever had self-doubt, if you've ever been just absolutely having an argument in your head about what to do in this particular trade and particular thing, what you do is you go, wow, there's lots of different competing points of interest. Okay? Those are the voices in the mind. That's what is known, I call the committee of the mind. Okay? And what you're doing is the self you call I is just the current organization of these competing programs that show up as spheres of influence, as committee members in the committee of the mind. This is what we were going to do and look at mind with, okay? So we have that concept, and that's kind of often a mind-boggling one for people. But let's take it a step further. It really boils down to this. Who is the observer of the process of perception? If you look at this process of perception here, depending on where you want to look at this wheel, it starts with brain. Out of brain comes emotion. Into the emotion is also belief that gets wired into there. Out of that belief and emotion comes your thinking, your perception, the perceptual map, and that becomes what actions you take, okay? And all of a sudden you realize it's a loop, and what makes the difference, over there on the right-hand side, there's that observer. That's the awareness outside of belief and thought that needs to be woken up so that you get off default programming that you brought to trading, okay? And the first step is we need to get the biology of emotional reactivity, get it under control. Otherwise, we end up like this guy. How many times have you fried your brain in trading decisions? How have you said, what was I thinking? I was possessed. Well, I have no idea what I was doing. I just freaked out. Well, there you go. Pretending to not feel emotions is dangerous to your health and also to your trading account. The first step is to recognize them, then to cool them out, okay? So the first thing we say is emotional regulation. I actually define as basically emotional first aid. And in emotional first aid, what we're doing is first of all, we get it that the body, the brain, emotion, and mind behave as one unit. You don't have emotions out there. Body, brain, emotion, and mind are all interconnected. And what we want to do in emotional regulation is start getting control of the emotional locomotive before the train wreck. Okay? Right now, I guarantee you that's not happening in most traders' world. They're finding out way too late that the emotion has erupted, has taken over them, taken over thinking, and polluted thinking, and had them just taking some terrible action they would regret. That is done, at least the way we teach in the first skill, that is done through breathing, relaxation, generation of what I call safe place. And ultimately what you're doing is you're learning you're recognizing that in the biology of the emotion, you can use your breathing and attention as elements of the emotion, and you can use them volitionally to calm them down. That would be what Herbert Benson called the relaxation response. So that's the very first thing. The second thing that has to occur, and this is where the really big change happens, with emotions calm, the door to the mind can be approached. Okay, this I that you're identified with is only one potential organization of itself that could be. That's good news, believe it or not, because the default one isn't working anyway. What we're doing is saying we have to develop an observer. We know that there's self-limiting beliefs going on in the mind that are causing the problem. And what we want to do is we want to create mindfulness as a way of being able to go into the mind and start isolating these things and de-identifying them with who we are. Okay? This is where we develop the observer, the self. And it's where we recognize that you and your beliefs are not one and the same. Your awareness, you can watch thoughts and beliefs as thoughts arise in mind, have a life, and then just simply recede. The witness of those thoughts does not have to engage them, does not have to fuse to them. And it's a big thing. Right now, most likely, you're not able to do that. That, by the way, is what George Soros was able to do. Mindfulness is literally a faculty of your humanness. It's a talent that can be developed. It's the tool that makes transformation possible. And it's just one of the coolest things because you realize, oh my God, this is the observer that I am now. I'm recognizing that I'm not stuck in a particular organization of itself. I can reorganize that for higher functioning. I can become designer of a self that engages the uncertainty of trading rather than the victim of it. Big news, friends. Big, big news. You don't have to be helpless, but you are going to have to work. As you do this, though, what's interesting, and this is where it gets really interesting, is that they discover the mind is it's kind of like a hood. You know, there's factions in that neighborhood that you don't want to mess with, and you need to know how to stay away from or know how to confront. There are also good areas of it, and you start recognizing two powerful elements of the mind. One is called the inner critic. If you've ever beat yourself up after a trade, if you've ever, had self-doubt, if you've ever had temptation for you to jump into trades and to overtrade, you know the inner critic. It's the part that criticizes you, judges you. Who said you could be successful? That was a stupid thing. What if you lose? What if you lose? Get in now. Prove yourself. Show them that you're really something. That voice has been around since there has been cognition. It's not you, friends. It's the inner critic living in the mind. It is a member of the trading committee, whether or not you like it or not. And the way I like to put it in the Genesis story, what you discover is that famous inner critic called the serpent. The serpent was in the garden before the humans ever showed up. It was a slam dunk, friends. That story is still going on inside your head. The difference is, there's always been this inner critic. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to try to pretend? Are you going to try to out positive think it? It doesn't care. It's highly destructive. It'll do it. Also, there is this part called orphan. When you experience your fear, that part that's scared, when you feel that fear, this is what in Jungian archetypal form is called orphan. It's also the part that jumps into trades and wants to prove itself. Well, you have one of those too. And what happens is that it's had so much control over your life that you haven't recognized there's other very powerful parts of the mind going on too that can be developed as an adult. Okay? what you can discover is that there are many more emotional programs than the default ones, the ones we just talked about, called spheres of influence. Okay? This is what I call the committee of the mind. In the same way that there is self-doubt, in the same way that there is criticism and judgment and temptation and fear and grandiosity as emotional programs that can really skew thinking and be terrible for the management of uncertainty, there are also emotional programs that give you the discipline, the ability to maintain order under pressure of a ruler, the courage of a warrior to turn toward your fear and face them. There's also self-soothing, self-compassion that allows you to calm your fear down. Instead of believing that being a drill sergeant toward this fearful part of yourself after you just take a loss is going to help you, I haven't found anybody that says, oh yeah, every time I beat myself up, it makes me an entirely improved trader. Tell me if there's any of you that became an improved trader by beating yourself up. Let me know, because you will be the exception that I have never heard from. Okay? It digs the fear deeper. Yet self-compassion pulls that out and helps to heal that fear and to dissolve it and begins to allow the amygdala, that's that fear base in your brain, to start trusting higher brain function. That would, by the way, be your discipline and your impartiality showing up symbolically as ruler and sage. Okay? So you begin to realize that there's lots of stuff going on inside that mind that you can actually, once the observer is up and you know what you're looking for, you can learn to bring into the light of awareness. You can start learning, literally, to start using that as the mind that you bring to uncertainty. Friends, this is the powerful part of self-development. It's all there. It's on your genome. It's just that it's not what the brain first adapted you as in the beginning. However, you're an adult now with an adult brain. These programs are there waiting for you to develop. And what we do in our coursework, and from all our books to all our CDs, all that stuff, CDs, boy, you tell what era I'm from, all those MP3s, you develop discipline, you develop courage, you develop patience, the self-soothing and impartiality that live as emotional programs, and you build them into a team. Okay? Just like you can think of the team of when you have self-doubt or when you're criticizing yourself and you're beating yourself up, the inner critic and the orphan are a team. Yeah, like in a boardroom. And they're creating havoc. And the inner critic's mission is to destroy you. It's the yin-yang. It's the destructive end of the human being. And you have this fear, and nobody's showing up to mentor that fear. What I'm saying is you have to take the responsibility to redevelop the mind for peak performance and probability thinking. And suddenly what you discover is it's there. You can build from emotional programs that give rise to the mind, that gives rise to the committee of the mind. You can repopulate the mind that engages uncertainty rather than using the mind that you brought to trading, which we already know that's not going to work for success in trading. No matter how smart, no matter how knowledgeable, it's your EQ, it's your emotional intelligence. That's the edge in the trading mind. So we're getting there and we go, okay, this is the new potential that lies in you. It's there, friends, but you have to develop it for managing uncertainty, not certainty. So ultimately, what you discover is this is course really, my work is about self-mastery. Suddenly you realize that you do not learn to control outcome. That's always been an illusion. And any system that tells you it's going to control outcome or it's so predictable that you're on, all you have to do is not have to worry about it and leave your emotions at the door, that's all BS. Because ultimately this is all about self-mastery, emotional self-mastery. You learn to control what you can control. You control the mind that you bring to the performance of execution. trends. That's what you can change. That's what you can do, and it works. It gives you the psychological edge that you've been seeking. It's cool stuff. So how does this really work? Well, on the left side of this graph, you're seeing pretty much how the impulsive fear-based mindset works. That's the one you came to trading with. And it doesn't have to be fear-based. It can also be impulsive-based. You can be an alpha. But the thing is all of a sudden you're chasing trades rather than patiently waiting for the trade to come to you. And what you discover very quickly is that winning in trading is a very different thing. Winning is just simply landing on the right side of probability. It's not a reason to get excited. Losing is simply landing on the wrong side of probability from your standpoint. And what you discover is that you better learn to really like losing. You better become such a consummate loser that when you're trading that you keep your losses small. But you see this thing, you go into, most people stay mindless and they're blind to the internal dialogue. And basically, it's kind of like baseball stats, you know? If you take a look at it, you look at a 300 hitter, when you look at it that way, you go, well, God, he's a 300 hitter. Wow, isn't that? That's really great. What he's really telling you that in terms of potentiality, he's only getting base hits 3 out of 10 times. He's not getting base hits. He's getting out 7 out of 10 times. Yet, that probability lands him in basically an elite level of baseball. It works the same way. The key is, are you willing to train yourself? On the right side, you start looking at the emotionally regulated, calm, focused mindset, and all of a sudden you have command over the mind you bring to the management of uncertainty, and you're acting from a committee that's about ruler, it's about sage, it's about the impartiality, it's about courage, it's about patience. It goes along with your passion rather than the adapted voice and the inner critic showing up at the screen of your mind when things get tough, when money starts really gets risk and things going against you, when you feel stress. Who shows up? Truth is you can train that, okay? And it just so happens that's what we teach. We teach performance psychology. So, how do you become the change? My real question is this. What are you willing to do to become a successful trader? Are you just willing to continue doing the same things over and over again, harder and harder and harder, waiting for things to work out? Are you willing to go to a plan B? Okay? Honestly, the problem is courage. The courage to grab the bull by the horns and to master the mind that trades. That's what everybody's so scared about. Short term, it's a lot easier to let change pass on by. Because in short-term success, when you don't take a trade because you got fearful, the emotional brain wins for it. It says, well, you didn't risk, you didn't die, so God, it's very successful. We'll do that again. We'll give you a shot of dopamine, even though you missed a great opportunity. Okay? Even fear of missing out of profits is when you take that little bit of profit, there's also a relief. And short-term survival strategy works. Hey, you lived, you got a little bit of money. Hey, let's eat for today. But you miss on the probability of becoming a really consistently profitable trader. So what do you do? Well, there's lots of, if you go to the website, there's free ebook. There's lots of articles, lots of videos that are free for your viewing. A lot of people really digest those, and they can talk me better than I can talk me. Okay, they know them better than me. Then you can start looking at the courses. We have a group course and an individual course, and that the group course has 5 group sessions. It teaches exactly what we've gone over here, actually the how to do it. It's a webinar format. It's got virtual classroom. It's open 24/7. Our next class is in June. Then there's the individual course. It's highly, 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 and I might add that that course is open now. A lot of people will join now, get an easy early start, so people don't recognize in the group course that the first class assumes that you've been working with the materials for 2 weeks. and it's a real wall that people hit when they get there and they sign up for the last minute. Smart people get in early, get some stuff really practiced, and they're ready to really take advantage of that course the way it should be. And, there was actually a guy from Romania who did that. I thought, oh my God, that guy's really smart. I wish I'd thought about that 5 years ago. And then there's the individual course. That's for the guy who, or a girl, that really says, you know something, I want mentorship. And the truth is, the individual course is a lot longer. It comes 10 sessions with me, and it comes with a massive master level multimedia course that we go through the progression from emotional regulation to mindfulness to the internal dialogue to developing the performance mind to really engaging the struggle of uncertainty. Really powerful stuff. But this is what we do. And if you're interested in developing the mind that trades, we'd like to talk to you. We'd like to talk about that. If you have questions, we've got a few minutes, and I'd love to be able to answer them. It's always.
This fellow wrote a number of comments.
Here's one comment from Guy. If anyone doubts you're speaking about breathing and emotions, just try this. Next time you get caught up in an emotional moment in a movie, on the edge of tears, just take a deep breath, and most of that emotional response will go away. Yeah, that's the. We are, when you look at babies breastfeeding, you will see them doing diaphragmatic breathing, and they are very calm, very pleasant, stuff like that. Somewhere between infancy to usually 4 or 5 years old, they learn to breathe only with their upper chest, and they learn how to produce anxiety or anger. That's what happens when you don't bring enough air to oxygenate the brain, only the big muscles. So, same person. I've listened to you for years, and I have a lot of respect for your unmatched knowledge of emotions and trading. But I'm a programmer, and I can write programs that take all the emotions out of trading, but I have never been able to write a program that can consistently make money, nor have I heard of a consistent, profitable program ever. Making predictions is difficult, especially when it involves the future. Yeah, you're right. What you discover is that you may be a programmer and you may be doing an algorithm, but the truth is that you are still embedding your beliefs and emotions into it, okay? And what you've done is you've created a program with that bias in it, and it starts operating. And even if that, and I have a client that is a hedge fund manager, and he has his own hedge fund. It's a hedge fund. It's $25-30 million. And he's a physicist, and he's developed his logarithms and things like that. And understand this is he's a client of mine, and he still has free will with his logarithm. But what he grasps as a physicist, he grasps that even though he writes the algorithm, he programs it. But what he does is he also programs in his own biases. You can't help but that. You are never free of your biases. Becoming an observer of those biases, boy, that's a trick. But like with the guy with Marco, the guy that I was talking about, he has some free will from the algorithm, and it's done very well for him, and he's growing. But he had the same problem you had until basically he'd come to the moment where no matter how well he could program, it was really hard to get the logarithm to work effectively over time. Because also, the other thing is a lot of people think that the markets are static for some unknown reason. They're organic. It's a jungle. And the moment that you introduce change into it, the environment starts changing. So even when you put an logarithm in, ultimately the systems around it are changing. Even the high frequency guys, there's people working around that and discovering that they're not as effective as they used to be. Same guy. I have repeatedly heard that only about 5 or 6% of traders consistently make money. I am wondering, is this the same group, or is it a new group of the top 6% over time? In other words, can some people trade successfully for a little while and then don't, and then a different group come along for a small time, and it's not the same people who are going to stay at that top 6%. You know something? I don't know. What I do know is this, is that the trading industry will not produce the numbers of attrition or extinction in this industry. If you get around brokers, they understand that they burn through the vast majority of their clients in 3 years. Okay. And, so there is a bias for them to not necessarily say emotions really aren't that important because they're going to burn through it. And what happens is this cycle, we've gotten used to this. And that's just the way it is. I think what you're saying is pretty intriguing. Okay. The numbers that I've heard, and these are highly subjective numbers, is that 5% are actually consistently profitable. But within that 5%, only 1% are actually making a really good money. I know 5 or 6 of these guys, maybe 10 at the most, and and I've had clients, all of them, well, not every one of them, and ultimately they had to learn to really create a different mind for trading, and they had to learn how to. They had to be able to take that mind and move it from trading and then move it into other areas, and they had to be able to change it. Now, some people get quite adapted to it, but it's a really good point. I really don't know the answer to that, and it's a good question though, and I would not. The conspiracy side of me says most likely you're right. That speculation is right. Good, great observation.
2 more questions.
Okay, question. When I wake up each morning and have thoughts of fear, losing, or FOMO, always lose.
I
always lose. Why is it so hard to get out of that mindset? Because you don't have the tools to get out of that mindset. You have entrenched neural pathways that have absolutely no desire to change because they were very successful at saving your life at another time, at another place. They are grooved into you like the Grand Canyon is grooved into the canyon. Okay? So you think, well, I'm just going to use positive thinking. I'm going to use NLP. I'm going to use affirmations. I'm going to use visualization. The brain really doesn't care, okay? Because ultimately, when you're saying, I have this dread, I have this, I have already that, what you're saying is that you're not turning toward the fear and asking, what is the belief there? And then having the courage and the power and the desire to change it. That is what has to happen. And what happens with most traders is they really don't want to see their demons. They want to pretend that they really want to pretend that there's a holy grail out there. And the truth is, you are that holy grail, but unfortunately, you're in raw form. And the fear that you experience, that's what has to be turned to. And you're not changing the fear just with a little breath work. You're changing it by first regulating it, but then developing the observer to say, what is the fear here? Okay? And then you're saying, well, this part of me, this orphan part of me is being attacked by an inner critic part of me, and I have to develop the inner resources to change that narrative. And that's what you're not doing right now, and that's what's, from my standpoint, necessary.
Final question from Michael.
Okay, final question from Michael. Thank you. I've seen the breathing and safe place meditation elsewhere. Are they enough? No. Breathing in safe place has been around for God knows how many years. Breathing's been around for at least 5,000 years, from the yoga training, from the Vedic texts and stuff like that, and the Buddhists for 2,500 years, the Jews and the Christians for about 2,000, probably the Jews probably about 4,000. And until Constantine came along, breathing as part of spiritual practices of Christianity was part of it. And then, the Roman emperors didn't want to deal with that. So anyway, that part's been there. Safe place has been something that's been around probably since the 50s or 60s. But what happens is if you listen to the way I say it, emotional regulation It's not a game changer. Okay? What happens is until you learn to regulate the emotions, you do not get to the door of the mind. The door of the mind and opening it, that's what the observer's about. Until you can open that door, which requires a calm state of mind, you do not get to go inside the mind and start looking and searching. Sorry about that, guys. And looking for the belief structure that's stopping your ability to perform better in trading. And believe me, the belief structure that stops you performing better in trading can be very different than the belief structure that allows you to be a superb athlete. Believe me, they're very different. So ultimately, if you were looking at the group course, the very first part of it would be the breathing in the safe place section. And it's already telling you up front that that's not going to change anything. But if you don't have that, you're never going to get to the mind. And it does change things. I've actually had people that they just simply didn't know how to regulate an emotion. And the moment they learned how to regulate an emotion, they were on a totally different plane in their trading. But I don't like to give people false hope. I like to tell them, no, emotional regulation, and they keep doing this. I mean, I was watching a program today where they came out with a new way of measuring heart rate and variability, and it attaches to you, and basically they give you a little breathing exercise when you get more stressed out. And it was just like, boy, this is kindergarten, never getting anywhere near the mind. And at the same time, they can be used. But the thing is that the first stage is you learn how to regulate this stuff right here. It's never going to be enough. Then you learn mindfulness because you need to start finding out what's going inside the mind that your mind doesn't want you to see. Okay? And then you get to learning going, oh, the internal dialogue. That's what you ought to be focusing on, is that there will be an inner critic that lives within you that produces at a minimum scarcity thinking or impulsive thinking, and worse yet, a lot of self-doubt. There will also be an orphan living within you that is deeply fearful or deeply trying to prove himself and jumps into trades. There will also be parts of the self that have lying dormant within you that you need to wake up and to start building so they show up in your working awareness. That's where the magic happens. And then what you need is you need to learn to recognize that the challenges of trading, the challenges of life are never going to change. What changes is that you learn how to bring a very different mind into that moment of engaging the uncertainty, engaging the randomness. That's where the change really happens, friends. Well, friends, I thank you. You've got me all worked up here. I really enjoyed talking with you. I just love this stuff. And if I can help you, I would love to be able to help you. If you're seriously looking at this, and going, you know something, I really, I don't want to waste Randy's time, but, I really want to see if what he does can help me in my evolution as a trader. If you're there, okay, and you realize you need to do something and you need to develop the mind that trades, ask for a free consult. Go down at the end of this thing is the website, that www.mytraderstateofmind.com. Dolores will put it into the box. No, she won't. No, she can't anymore for whatever reason. She's saying she can't. Anyway, go to the website, ask for a free consult, look around the website, kick some tires, and start recognizing, oh my God, I had no idea this was going on underneath the hood of my mind, and I need to get control of it if I'm going to be a successful trader. If you're there, contact us, ask for a free consult, and let's see if we can work together. Fair enough? I hope so. Friends, I've enjoyed myself. I want you to have an incredibly wonderful Thursday afternoon and evening, or night, depending on where you are in the world. And tomorrow, what I want you to do is start really looking at your trading and start noticing, who is this guy trading? What organization of self is this trading? Do I start noticing emotions a little earlier and noticing that I'm all tense, I'm all not breathing? Oh my God, I'm a sitting duck to have an emotional hijack. Okay? That's where I can help you. So, friends, have a great evening. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you.